4 centuries ago, the misty valleys of Berhampore, a remote village in central India, harbored a lethal secret. The locals lived under the shadow of the Nishir Molo. These were 4 massive, shadowy figures who wandered the surrounding woods in the dead of night, carrying a heavy coffin on their shoulders and chanting a deep, hypnotic mantra. Survival in Berhampore required strict obedience to 3 absolute rules. If you heard the heavy thud of their footsteps and the drone of their chant, you had to hide immediately. You could make absolutely no sound, and under no circumstances could you look directly at them. A young villager named Madan followed almost all of the instructions. Caught in the woods after dark, he dove into the heavy brush. He clamped his hands over his mouth to silence his breathing. But driven by a fatal curiosity, he opened one eye to watch them pass. The moment his gaze locked onto the figures, the chant stopped. The bearers vanished from the dirt path, only to materialize instantly right behind his shoulder. When Madan failed to return home, his father led a search party into the dark forest. They found him paralyzed by the base of a banyan tree, his face frozen in an unnatural, unspeakable horror. The village learned to barricade their doors at sunset, living in absolute terror until the entities eventually fell dormant. The curse slept quietly for generations, leaving behind one terrifying question: what would it take to wake them up? Meghna, a modern lab scientist in Delhi, spent months scouring local botanical archives for a lead on rare cellular regeneration. She eventually discovered a set of specific illustrations in a 19th century regional survey of Berhampore, depicting a tree that began to dominate her thoughts and eventually her dreams. These records describe a substance known in folklore as mrityunjay amrit. While the text treats the elixir as spiritual, Meghna and her partner Ishita believe the glowing green sap is an undocumented botanical compound capable of finishing their elusive lab antidote. They traveled to Berhampore to harvest this sap, convinced that the local legends were merely a primitive way of describing a rare biological phenomenon. The village environment reacts to their arrival with immediate hostility. As they cross the gates, a sudden freezing gale slams into the streets, plummeting the temperature and plunging the local temple into darkness. The local priest and the village elders watch the shifting skies in deep dread. They recognize the sudden cold and unnatural darkness as the signs of a long dormant presence stirring. By attempting to harvest the sap for a modern cure, the scientists have disturbed a delicate balance, inadvertently breaking the 400-year silence that had kept the village safe. Ignoring the local anxiety, the researchers enlist the village-head son, Anush, to lead them. They plan to reach the ruins of the 400-year-old royal palace at midnight to locate the specific botanical source described in their research. They treat the excursion like a routine field collection, carrying cameras and equipment through the village, seemingly blind to the intense, unnatural winds howling through the streets around them. Squeezing through a rusted window frame, they drop into the eerie, echoing halls of the ancient ruins. Surrounded by heavy stone walls, they are now completely isolated from the rest of the community. As they walk deeper into the dark corridors, Meghna suddenly stops. The intricate archways and crumbling stone patterns are a perfect physical match for the images she studied in the archives. Her obsession with the scientific properties of the sap has led them to the very epicenter of the legend, placing them at the heart of the village's most dangerous history. Back at the edge of the dark, freezing woods bordering the village, 2 local men are trapped by the weather. The sudden, supernatural storm has pinned them down, making it impossible to see through the heavy mist. Cutting sharply through the violent wind is a steady, rhythmic sound, a low, heavy chant, growing louder with every step. The Nishir Molo step out of the fog. Their eyes glow red in the darkness, marching forward, halting directly in front of the paralyzed men. The men stand frozen as the final horror unfolds. Slowly, with a heavy, agonizing creak, the wooden lid of the coffin begins to slide open entirely on its own. A blood-curdling scream erupts, ripping across the village square, piercing the ancient palace walls, reaching the trapped researchers inside. The modern scientific intrusion has successfully unsealed the ancient diyam. With the coffin open and the bearers active, the peace of Berhampur has been replaced by the return of the four figures from the fog.